Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the entire beautiful, getting a little bit colder, PNW, the Pacific Northwest. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you are in the right place. This is where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Craig Swanson. Our guest today is Kristine Nguyen, and we are excited to have Kristine on. Kristine is an accountant and founder of Pretty Books, where she and her team oversee financial management, providing services such as bookkeeping, accounting, back office management, financial modeling, and cash flow management for companies both big and small. She and her team enjoy helping small business owners interpret and manage their financials, as well as develop tactical accounting processes to support strategic decision-making. As I said, we are excited to have Kristine on the show today. Welcome. Kristine, we will be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us. We are all over the joint, Craig. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Overcast. I'll never forget that for Craig, and YouTube. You might say we are ubiquitous. Now, before we bring on Kristine, Craig, hello, how are you doing?
Hello, Dan. I am doing fantastic. It is getting shorter. You have to get your fantastic into a few fewer daylight hours now that Seattle is like hitting over into the winter.
It is getting short, but you know what else? I came back. It's actually longer here because, Craig, I just got back from Reykjavik, Iceland, where the days are a little bit shorter. It was not terribly cold. The days are getting a little bit short there. And I had a terrific time. Those people who follow my work may have seen me write about this, but you may not know. Have you heard of the Blue Lagoon? The Blue Lagoon is in ice in just outside Reykjavik.
I hadn't previously, but I've heard about it just recently with you returning from your trip.
Okay, so it's a beautiful. It is man-made. National Geographic says it's one of the 25 wonders of the world. It's absolutely beautiful. It's warm. The water's hot. The water's warm. It's got minerals. It's very healthy. It's just a cool thing. And when Barb and I went in, it was our first day there. We decided to go right away to get that, checked off the list. And of course, you got to take pictures. When my daughter Kelly and her boyfriend had gone, they had taken pictures, and my colleagues that I was there with, I seen their Facebook posts. They had taken pictures. I got to take pictures, right? So I had my handy dandy iPhone, which I know this is great radio. I'm showing here my handy dandy iPhone. I go in. Barb's already in. She's already walking and floating away. The water's great. I'm petrified, Craig. I'm petrified that I'm going to drop my phone into the water because it's got my life. It's got my pictures of my grandchildren and dogs and us, and it's got all my business. It's got my life. And I'm thinking, not only if I drop it, may be damaged, but I don't think I can even find it. So I'm taking some pictures, but I'm scared. You can tell. And pretty soon I got to a point that I said, I can't do this. I can't not enjoy this. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to put it back in the locker. When I walked back in to tell the attendant that, the attendant said, hey, in case you want, we sell the waterproof things that with a lanyard, and it's waterproof, and you snap it shut and you can take pictures. Oh my gosh, I went and paid, I think, 26,900 kroner, which I think is like $13, but I didn't even care. I was there. I bought it. I went out. We stayed like 2 hours, took great pictures and video, had a fantastic time. And it made me think, Craig, as I went through my retreat with my other consultants, sometimes, and I'm probably as guilty as anybody, sometimes we don't tell the world everything we do. We just think by osmosis, they know what we do. I knew what Blue Lagoon did. I didn't know they sold some stuff like that. And I found out they had told their people about that. You run into that at all?
I run into that all the time. I mean, especially around computers. So, like, one of the things that occurs to me is, do you know that Apple will back up all of your stuff so that all your pictures of your grandchildren are not at risk if you lose your phone?
I did know that, but I was still
Okay.
scared.
Cool. Speaking from what, because I've lost many phones, and I so huge believer in backups. But yes, like I am constantly realizing the stuff that I am just so aware of that my business does, or things that I'm involved with. We just had a friend that didn't know some critical website that everything we run our company is based off of, and that's just, it was something everyone assumed that person knew, and no one had ever shown her. So
Yeah,
happens
I think
all
we
the
could do a
time.
whole. I think we could do a whole show on that. But we have a very important guest, and actually, Kristine, as we welcome you in, when Craig first introduced you as coming on the show, Pretty Books, I thought, oh, this is about like books that I would read on the plane. No, you are making. We definitely know what you do. You are making the books of your clients pretty, is what it sounds like. First of all, welcome to the show, and Kristine, how did you get into this business?
Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Craig. Um, I got into the business accidentally, actually. The business officially, LLC in 2017, but I remember trying to find extra income for books and coffee in when I was around, 19, 20 years old, right out of high school. And I, encountered people that need help adding up receipts. And that's how I got started. That's really how I got started. I really didn't know what I was doing. I was adding receipts, and pretty soon I was in their QuickBooks or their Quickens, helping them, and then eventually realized this is called bookkeeping. And then that's when I knew I needed to apprentice bookkeeping.
Oh, that is great. And so how long did you apprentice?
So the way I did it was I was never introduced to the world of accounting. Now I took a couple classes in college for accounting, but they didn't really go deep into what bookkeeping is. They did a bunch of debit and credit, which I brush off as being very boring. So when I needed to, find extra income and did these things, I actually found myself enjoying it a lot. And in fact, my first real gig or opportunity to do it was in a law firm that I was a receptionist in. The four attorneys at the time had business of their own, and then they wanted me to do the bookkeeping for the firm and their own businesses. And that's how I got my head start. Pretty soon after that, I said, you know what, this is what I want to do all day long. I don't know how to get into it, but I want to do more of this. And in fact, I kind of wanted to get into it because at one point before that, I was doing lead generation for a company, and I was phone calling these people who was buying equipment for their company because we were doing equipment financing. And I noticed that when I called doctors' offices, multiple doctors' offices were leading to the same person that I need to talk to. And it turns out that person was their, bookkeeper or controller. And in fact, that person could work at odd hours, is what I learned. So being in being an opportunist and, having a lot of things going on, I wanted to find work that made money, but also flexible with my schedule. So I got, figured out that I need to do bookkeeping. And from that point, found a tiny one-person bookkeeper, asked if I can work for them. Had no experience. She allowed me to work at whatever time I could for a couple of her clients. And she gave me the keys to her company. And I remember after my last job of the day, I would drive, my last job ends at 9 p.m. And I would drive to her office in Redmond, Washington at 10 with my dinner. And from 10 to 1 or 2 a.m. would work on her books, on those client books. And that's how I learned bookkeeping. But that's kind of the very beginning of it.
Wow, that's really cool. And so it sounds like you didn't have a preconceived notion of what bookkeeping was, or even necessarily recognize that it was a role that people were filling. You found out about it from cold calling, from effectively doing lead generation and sales.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I thought what I was doing was data entry and office management. In fact, I never really came to the conclusion that I was an accountant until many years later. I was okay with calling myself a bookkeeper, but it took me a while to even realize I was an accountant.
And we're going to get into what you do for your clients. Yet I am so fascinated by the entrepreneurial journey of it, because that's what we do here. We speak to entrepreneurs, and your entry into entrepreneurialism was really truly by accident. I mean, you really, for all intents and purposes, stumbled upon it. You had a skill, you figured out how to help people, you found out that there was a need, and then you really just over the course of time created this. And I looked at your website before, and you actually come out and say, I'm an entrepreneur. And I love that, because that's really what this, I don't know if there's a question in part of this. I'll turn one into a question. Talk about, in the time that you have really started your business, what might be the most telling thing that you've learned? What is the biggest thing that you've learned from being an entrepreneur in the time since you've opened?
I think it's just hustling and learning. The number one thing that's telling is being humble, and allow yourself to accept the fact that you don't know everything. And I am very fortunate throughout my career and entrepreneurial journey to have met so many amazing entrepreneurs, whether they were in the form of clients, in the form of partners, in the form of anything. It's always presenting myself as I can learn from you no matter what.
You know, I was actually thinking about you're saying how you're humble, and really, I think the way you even describe your own journey kind of might hide how what I have heard your clients say about you. So I was just wondering, like, if you could take the humble hat off for a moment and just can you describe what people say they value about working with you? What feedback do you get from your customers? Why do they like working with your company?
I think the number one thing people will say is the relationship is authentic. I remember starting out my business, and there were times where I took on clients that I knew I wouldn't make any money off of, but I authentically was in love with them and authentically believed in their journey. So I think the number one thing is, people will say that the love is real and sometimes too much, as I've learned. And then, of course, from an organization point of view, is ever evolving. If you have been my client, you'll notice that things are rolling out, things are changing. We're getting your feedback, and we're not afraid to, shift things around and tell you that we put that other thing we tried away because it didn't work out for you, but we're trying something new.
So let's dive. Let's. This is a good segue. Let's dive into what you do for your clients. We know you do bookkeeping and financial. Are you? And I want to make sure. Are you a CPA? And do you put all of that together? So are you a one-stop financial services package for your clients?
Mhm. We are not a one-stop financial service package. I think financial service is very broad and very big. A typical business would need various level of expertise. We focus primarily on operational accounting. So think about, how much money do I make? How much money do I spend? And how do I have a streamlined process to know how much money I make and how much money I spend? And then from what I report and record, how do I interpret and understand that so that it relates to the activities that I do in order for me to make proper decisions so that my financial reflects the goals I want it to be. So, that's kind of the typical work we do. We're definitely not, we're not tax CPAs. In the sense that tax CPAs focus primarily on tax strategies, doing your tax return, learning a little bit about your private life. We really 100% focus on your business life only.
Got it. That's really interesting. I was thinking, you said the love is real, and like you're talking about relationships, and yet you're in this world filled with math. So like, where is that balance between a bunch of math or a bunch of numbers and a bunch of client relationships? I mean, what's more important, clean books or good relationships?
Um, I think that to have good relationship, you have to understand the client. Well, first of all, to have good books, you have to understand the client and the client story. And to understand the client story, you have to have good relationship with them. So I think that there are times when people say you have clean books, but does the books really reflect the story of the client? Is another question.
All right. Well, I just text Craig. I kind of lost track of time. I was so interested in what you were saying. I almost realized we got to we got to pay the bills. We got to pay the bills, Kristine. So we are going to take a short break. to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Kristine Nguyen, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to find out what she thinks about financial education in schools. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. EO Accelerator is a coaching program for Seattle area business owners who want to grow their existing small businesses beyond $1 million in annual revenue. As a small business owner, you face new challenges every day, whether it's deciding how you're going to fill a rush of new orders, puzzling out where to find new customers, or sweating about making payroll. You find yourself wishing you had an instruction manual for your business. At EO Accelerator, our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the tools, accountability, and community to aggressively grow and master their business. This is more than theory. This is entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs, with top Seattle business leaders who have been where you are, volunteering as coaches and mentors in the Accelerator program. Because the hustle will only get you so far. The next level of success is a team sport. Want to hit $1 million in revenue? Well, then join the club.
All right. Thank you, Dan, and welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we are interviewing the best and the brightest CEOs and thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area. I'm Craig Swanson, and our guest today is Kristine Nguyen for our next segment, Hot or Not.
Well, Kristine, this is where Craig and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, about a whole bunch of things. You're going to tell us whether it's hot or not, and then why or why not. It's interesting that you learned in school what you liked, and it took you right into an entrepreneurial role. Hot or not, financial education in schools.
Hot, absolutely.
Yeah. And do you see do you see enough of that, or do you think there's enough of that, and how can that be improved?
There's definitely not enough of it. I don't think people are prepared on multiple angles. Number one, the tax obligation and requirement as a citizen is something we stumble upon when we get a job. So that doesn't, we're not prepared to encounter that or manage that in school. The second is just personal wealth management and financial management in general. I don't think anywhere in school do they really help us practice the reality of managing our own money.
Hot or not, cloud-based accounting solutions as opposed to software on my computer or even sheets of paper on my desk?
Hot, absolutely hot. Cloud-based accounting allows multiple people to work on your books at the same time. It also usually includes more robust AI features, allowing the mundane, items of accounting to go a little bit faster and more cost efficient. So definitely, it has opened up the budget and the time to do more important things with your numbers than just doing the data entry.
Well, Kristine, it's funny you just answered that way, because my next hot or not is going to probably add on to it. Hot or not, the use of artificial intelligence, of AI, in the process of managing finances.
I think it's hot. It's hot. It's already been in use to a certain level. There's automation in repetitive entries, repetitive everything, and software reading transactions data to help you do the accounting. So that's definitely it's definitely a hot item.
Let me ask this as a follow-up, because Craig and I, we enjoy talking about AI and a lot of the opportunity, but there are some potential challenges, risks, and concerns. What concerns from a financial standpoint does AI pose for someone who may not actually know a lot of what they're doing?
I think the number one thing and that we've seen is over trusting that AI will be able to provide you with perfect sets of books. It's very often that I hear that, hey, there's all these features built out. Can I just not click accept all? And the answer is no.
But it's so easy to just click accept all.
Exactly. The software present itself as being very smart, but it's not always accurate.
All right. Well, you actually might have actually answered this a little bit kind of in the preliminary, but hot or not, working from home versus working in an office?
I definitely think it's hot. It's hot because it allows people, well, I'm a person who's building a family, and so are my employees. And so for me, I realize that people need to have more time with their families, and if they do so, they will do better at work, and be more effective at it.
You know, it's funny, Christina. You don't know this, but in my normal daily life outside of podcast hosting, I do a lot of work around risk management and insurance and protection of assets and all of that stuff. And that's very unsexy for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's not as much fun as talking about all the fun things of being an entrepreneur. I gotta believe that sitting down and bookkeeping and crunching numbers, I know from my, it isn't as much fun as making those numbers. What are some of the challenges that small business, let me actually let me change that. What are small business owners not doing that they should be doing on their own that would help in the whole process?
Well, I think from a financial management point of view, not all business owners dedicate a time to review their financials with someone. I think it's very easy for a business owner to look at a profit and loss and balance sheet and believe they know how to read the numbers on it, but really not always spend the time to really understand why it's there. So it's definitely, I think, to understand and help your bookkeeper tell your story better, and also to help you understand your story better, allocating and dedicating proper time to really create space to understand this stuff and look at it even, is going to be helpful.
Right.
I was thinking about a business owner's relationship with their books, and some are in denial and some are actively doing it. But I think there is this transition for a lot of business owners between the point that they're the ones that are basically doing the transactions in whatever system they're using to keep track of their money, and then they trust somebody else to do it. And various business owners have gone through various stages and various pain points on that. Why do business owners hold on to that for a long time, maybe longer than they should? And what are the problems you see in transitioning into an outsourced bookkeeper?
Yeah, because the number one reason for newer entrepreneurs or small business owners is when you look at the nature of bookkeeping itself, it looks like anyone can learn it. There are thousands of tutorials online. You can install QuickBooks, set it up within 5 minutes, and what is there to not do, right? You just data entry, categorize it. So there's this huge misconception that why can't I do it? It's so easy. I think the missing concept here is not just simply doing it, but figuring out why you're doing what you're doing, and then how does that changes your interpretation of your company.
So I think it's correct. I think you asked a great question, and it makes me think as we go along. I mean, that's a little bit, I think, what differentiates you and Pretty Books is there's a story that the financial part is sending. So we think about our unique value proposition as businesses and what we offer, whether they be products or services, but there's a story behind the numbers and all of that, and I think that there's sometimes fear of entrepreneurs they don't really want. I don't want to know that because I might have to do something different. I might have to change it. I don't know if that might be a scary story for me. Can you talk about it? And you obviously know, can you talk about your experience in helping allay those fears, or overcome those fears, or set strategies? You might say, yeah, there's a problem here, but it's fixable. Can you talk about your process in that?
Yeah. We really don't focus on like fixing a financial path as much as helping our clients be comfortable creating the space to see what they see. So it's like when you're thinking about your cash flow runway, it's not a meeting to discuss why you're in a cash flow crunch. It's in a meeting to recognize, accept that that is what it potentially could be, And it's a right for the business owner to know in advance and make that decision. So for me, I feel like it's more of a right, and that it's my job to present that right to my clients.
I love that. It is a right for a business owner to know what is coming up with their finances, as opposed to just discovering it when it occurs.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're a business owner, you need to get clients. Hot or not, networking events, are they a necessary evil or an enjoyable endeavor?
A little bit of both, but it has been more enjoyable in my current state. I've networking in itself, I've learned, is a skill set. So it took quite a long time for me to figure it out. But now that I think I've figured it out, it's quite enjoyable. I'm actually making good friends while networking.
So how, and I should have this on the top of my head, but how long have you been in business now, Kristine?
The business itself was officially established in 2017 as an LLC. I have been some sort of bookkeeper, accountant, controller, hybrid since 2006. So at least 15 years or
Okay.
so.
At what point did you find, okay, I'm getting enough work. I have to add people. I have to add employees. And can you talk a little bit about going from, yeah, I'm just taking care of people's receipts, to all of a sudden now you're hiring people at some level. Can you talk about that transition?
Yeah. I actually was a very busy solopreneur, and I got burnt out. And one year I looked at myself and actually decided to quit accounting altogether. I saw a lot of other solopreneur bookkeepers, and I didn't really like the way they were working. So I thought this was not going to be the career for me. And since I've been working since, forever, I wanted to take time off. I took 2 years time off, explore other things, and then came back and said, you know what? The reason why I didn't like accounting was because I was doing it all by myself. I want to build a team to support these people. And not only that, I want to bridge bookkeeping and bridge bookkeeping to business owners, and not just be the bookkeeper in the corner.
That's really, really cool. Actually, just tell us more about that transition. So you basically moved from being a freelancer, solopreneur, single person company, to being the owner, leader, manager of a bookkeeping company that supports a lot of clients. Like what's that transition been like for you?
Um, it's been it has been very exciting. It is exactly what I am made to do. Um, and the transition definitely is not easy. When you're a solopreneur, you do everything in your head. You have all the skill set. You do things how you want, and you are protected because you're the one delivering the quality. When you're running a team, you have to have oversight across the processes, the systems, the talent, the knowledge, and the deliverables. So it's more than just you delivering. It's figuring out how to create a process and system to pass that knowledge on and make sure that the quality is across the board.
Kristine, in your bio, you mentioned that you work with companies large and small. Do you have a sweet spot? Somebody listening to this said, "Well, I really like that Kristine. I'm interested in talking to her more." What is maybe your sweet spot of demographics for clients?
Yeah. Our sweet spot would be, in terms of revenue. Now we work with startups, and we work with companies that's been around. But I would say our sweet spot is around the $1 to $7 million in revenue size. It's when you are feeling as a business owner that, voila, I figured out this is a business. Okay. And now I don't care just about compliance anymore. I don't care about just get CPA getting their work. I want to be a smarter business owner and CEO, and I want to get more connected with my numbers. That's kind of our typical client.
That is fantastic. All right, I've got a question just in this path. Who does the bookkeeping for Pretty Books?
I do. I do the bookkeeping for Pretty Books. It's not always my priority, but it's becoming my priority. Um, yeah, I think in a sense, I enjoy the business building aspect, and I love bookkeeping and accounting because it allows me to participate in everyone's business building. So that's my love affair. The actual bookkeeping itself, you talk to really good bookkeepers, they like to be in a cubby and do bookkeeping. It's not necessary they want to talk to you. So it's a little different love affair.
That is fantastic. Well, Kristine, we're going to take our second short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Kristine Nguyen, for our Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to dive in a little bit more into the company name. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Idea Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, Port Ludlow Resort, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
All right. Thank you, Dan. And welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we're interviewing the best and the brightest CEOs and thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area. I'm co-host Craig Swanson, and our guest today is Kristine Nguyen for our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
All right, Kristine, we may be turning up the dial on the heat just a little bit. Well, we're gonna have some fun with it. You get to plead the fifth once and only once. I think my my first one is going to be an easy one, but I'm really curious, so I kept it to here. So, Kristine, plead the fifth. How did the name Pretty Books come about? What is the genesis? And tell us more about that.
Well, I did bookkeeping on my own as a gig for a couple years and, was not really official and realized I need to start getting official. And so I wanted to give myself a name, and I was in a client's house doing their books one day, and I was like, yeah, I like your books too. My favorite thing is make it pretty. And so, I'm a stickler for, the aesthetics of the books and the formatting and the consistency. And so Pretty Books came about, and I actually told my client then, and then put it on a business card. That's how I started.
All right. So I've got one, Plead the Fifth. You mentioned one of the things that attracted you to bookkeeping was you could do it at any hour. So for yourself, with zero input from the rest of the world, what hours are your perfect working hours?
My perfect working hours are kind of like a little mid-morning, after an hour of waking up, checking my emails, then about a couple hours of quiet time. That's what I like.
So, Kristine, all of us as people, but especially as entrepreneurs, can sometimes be our own worst critics. Plead the fifth. Share with us something that you still struggle with as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I continue to struggle with the question of when and how much to invest in a client or an employee. Both I see has fruits at some point, but the timing of it has always been challenging to me. Yes, absolutely. It's like when you're overbuying inventory, and you know that you're going to sell inventory, but you didn't realize you overbought it, but you still feel like you should get it because it's a good deal.
Huh. It kind of sounds like you're describing the balance sheet, like looking at clients and staff as part of your balance sheet.
It is. I think that's how I speak about it. Professional service people is a form, like it is, labor is a form of inventory. But also, you also have to think of labor as something you amortize, an asset over time. And so the question is, do you have the money to accept all the amortization into the future?
Yeah. All right. Well, I was actually going to ask you a question about traveling, but we kind of so I know that you did some international traveling, and you spoke that you're growing a family. So, what is harder, international travel with a growing business concern, or international travel with a growing 2-year-old?
A growing 2-year-old, definitely. I have a terrific team. The only reason I pinged in while I'm traveling is because I can't help myself. it's the 2-year-old. I think it's figuring out the division of my time and her time. And when you're traveling, it seems like it's all her time.
I have young grandchildren. It is all her time. I'm just going to tell you that that is a truism. So how about this for a segue? Craig and I show up at your door, knock on the door, and say, we're giving you there's no money, whatever it costs. You have a treat yourself day. You can do whatever you want for how long you want for the day, and we're going to make it happen somehow. What would you choose on a treat yourself day?
Wow. Oh gosh, I could think of so many things. um, I not sure. I think just do nothing is the thing. Although I end up probably will be doing something. Um, my treat myself day would be when my house is all clean and I have a chance to experiment with some recipes.
Oh,
Oh, so a
oh,
little bit of
okay.
cooking. All
I enjoy
right.
it a lot.
What's your favorite recipe? What's your favorite recent recipe?
My favorite recent recipe, gosh, I am exploring Caribbean jerk beef ribs.
Oh,
Yeah, like the really big ones you get at Costco, and then you put them in the oven for like some 6 hours or something. It's really nice. I really enjoy that.
wow. And I'm not going to make a comment about cooking the books. That came into my head, but I'm going to let that one pass. Um, what keeps you up at night? As a human, there's some things that for all of us do that. What keeps you up at night?
Um, what keeps me up at night? Um, well, as an entrepreneur these days, and I've shared it, it's not necessarily what keeps me up, but it's something I'm more mindful about is whether what I'm building and the brand I'm creating and everything I'm creating, there is an artistic need to bring it out, right? That I'm spending a lot of emotional investment, financial investment into my company again to realize this piece of art. And the challenge in that is being an artist and then sometimes forgetting about yourself, and not creating enough space to understand whether, if or not, any of this work will trickle back into my personal wealth for my children. So that is something I've been paying attention to a lot since I had a kid, and it's something I will continue to work on to figure out and balance.
I really like that. I was actually wondering if there are any lessons that you've learned from working with your clients. I know, so you're talking about, your own, how you pass things on to your children, what things grow with your children. In a way, you're having these conversations on a daily basis with tens, hundreds of entrepreneurs that are dealing with similar things. Is there any lesson that you've learned that they didn't teach you, that you just watched from one of your clients that made a real impact in your life?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things I learned. Number one, having great books doesn't mean you have great cash flow. So I have seen and have spoken to many entrepreneurs who have amazing business, profitable businesses, but they'll always come to me and say, Kristine, why am I so poor in the bank? So that is, and I've also spoken with many people who come to me and say, I need to get my books clean so I can know how much I have in my bank, which is also a misconception. Um, and then also that's number one. And number two, it's also a life thing, which is how much to invest and when is it enough. Right. So it's a hard act to balance, hard thing to balance.
So my final question is going to really be around that, the personal side. I don't know if life balance is truly is really a misnomer. I think it's impossible to balance. One's higher than another at certain times. But how do you manage that? How do you make sure that as an entrepreneur that has employees and a human that has a family, how do you make sure that you are disciplined in creating as much balance as possible?
Well, foremost, I spend a lot of time understanding what I want in life, right? And although my business is my baby, I have come to the conclusion that being a mother is also very, very important to me. So therefore, they're equal in terms of weight. And so, really, as an entrepreneur, really setting those things as priority and then building process and systems and a great team to support that. I'm proud to say that I stop working exactly at 4:30 every day, and I do not work in my evenings or weekends. So I'm super proud of my team. I'm not sure.
That's really, really great. You're talking a little bit like, you're talking yourself as an artist, and I just want to know, like, you in the coming decade, do you have a sense of what you are building for in the coming decade, what you'd like to be building for in the coming decade? Is there any picture of where you're going that is like in your mind?
Yes, yes. There's a lot of pictures. It's scary. So I don't know if I want to share it all. But definitely allowing myself to be that entrepreneurial artist. And if you're an artist, you're constantly seeing more canvas to paint. And whether it's in a different field or within your own field, there's always more to paint on and slap on more paint, right? So in accountancy, figuring out how to bridge the bridge staffing for businesses that are growing and beyond our service level, right? You're here with Pretty Books, you're working with them. Now you became a $10 million, $15 million company. How do we support you in finding the right person, building the right team for your company?
Yeah. All right. That's really great. All right. Well, this is perfect timing. Kristine, thank you so much for being a guest on the Shrimp Tank with us today. For our listeners that want to get in touch with you, they're really kind of like intrigued with what they're hearing and want to explore having a relationship with a company like yours to get those books pretty. Where can they go to get more information?
Yeah, yeah. I work best out of my calendar link on my website. It's right smacked on the prettybooks.com website in the middle. Click on it, and I talk to people all day long. So make an appointment, and I'm here for you no matter what.
Fantastic. All right. And for all of you watching, make sure that you're checking out the replays for all these podcasts at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And wherever you get your podcast of choice, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, I love Overcast, please listen to us there. Like, make sure you give us a follow and follow us on our social media pages, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Kristine, it's been a pleasure meeting you. I so enjoy learning more about you and your business. Thank you for being on today, and best wishes and closing out the books of 2023 and starting 2024 strongly. Craig, as always, great to see you. Everyone, do exactly what Craig said. If you like us on our Facebook page, then you can watch us live stream every week, every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Pacific time. Our next show will be on Wednesday, November 8th, and our guest will be Helene Cahan from Strategic Insights. My co-host for the show will be Linda Popke. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.